Hi and welcome back to a new video. If you would have asked me 10 years ago if I would ever be here holding a Noctua AIO in my hands, I would have said that's never going to happen. Yet here we are. And you might also ask yourself, why an AIO? Isn't or aren't AIOs optimized already to the max? And I can tell you, Noctua pulled it off once again to deliver an absolute high-end product to the market. And we will check this out today.
The Seasonic PX 2200 is currently one of the strongest PSUs available, and it comes with two native PCIe 5.1 connectors, which allows to even hook up natively to RTX 5090. That is perfect for any overclocking system or high-end workstations. I'm also currently running this PSU, and so far I'm really satisfied with its quality and performance. The cables are very flexible, there are also cable comms included, and in addition also a 90-degree ATX 24-pin adapter, which also functions as a PSU tester at the same time. The fan is semi-passive, and even at a high load it is still very quiet. Find all information about this PSU in the link in the description.
The Noctua AIOs are available in 3 different sizes, starting with the LC124, which is the 240mm version. That means it comes with 2 120mm fans. The LC136 is then the 360mm version that comes then with 3 120mm fans and is supposed to cost $250. The biggest version would be the LC142, so 420mm version with 3 times 140mm fans is supposed to cost $280. With a lot of other AIOs these days, it's kind of state of the art that you get them pre-assembled. So that's usually much more convenient. Once you just add it to your system, it's a little bit less work. But here, pieces are just more traditional and still come fully disassembled. Then there's also this accessory fan, which I would personally definitely use. This just attaches directly towards the pump head with the magnets that you can see on the backside, and this would then actively cool surrounding components such as memory or VRM, but we will test that later. I first want to test a few other AIOs, so we have some comparison data. To test all the different AIOs, we will just reuse the system that I built a couple of weeks ago, and we will mount all of them after each other inside the case. And directly in front of the system we have this microphone. And this microphone is pointed directly towards the AIO and is in 20 centimeters distance. For the comparison, I'm doing 40 decibels noise normalized from the 20 centimeters distance. The case fans are running at the lowest possible fan speed, which is in this case 300 RPM. And that has almost no impact on the measurement. Because for example, with the 40 decibels, the AIO fans are running at 1200 RPM. And also I will always run the pump at the highest possible speed. And the AIO that's currently running in the system is an Endorphi Navis F360 ARGB. I'm then testing with Prime 95. I'm running first 10 minutes to heat things up and then take the average of the CPU temperature over 20 minutes. So that would be this one, which will be our measurement value. The CPU is running at about 155 watts, and then the measurement value was, at least for this Endorphi AIO, about 88.9 degrees Celsius on average. It's now a bit higher than the actual measurement value that I took because I also had to film those takes right here. And next in line to test is the Arctic Liquid Freezer 3. However, in this case, in the 240mm version. With the Liquid Freezer 3, the problem is that it's actually not really compatible with the X870E Hero motherboard because it collides with the stock M.2 heatsink on the bottom. For this test, I will just leave away the heatsink of the M.2 drive. I hope it's going to be fine for the short test. The test passed and the Arctic Liquid Freezer 3 finishes this at a result of 87.3 degrees Celsius. And as a third comparison AIO, we're using this Corsair Titan 360 RX. The Corsair Titan RX is definitely stronger at 40 decibels than the previously tested AIOs, and we can see a result of 82.3 degrees Celsius. This 240 AIO is definitely delivering a very impressive performance. For example, also compared to the other 360 AIO. And what I also noticed is that the pump is hardly noticeable. Even though I'm running the pump at 100% speed, I cannot really hear it, which is definitely impressive. Now going over to the temperature result, you can see 84.2 degrees Celsius. The last test I want to run is with the 360 AIO, and I want to test this also with the small fan attached to the pump itself. Because we now have comparison data from running it with the 240 AIO, which was not using the fan, and now we have comparison values for VRM temperature and also for the DIMM temperature. After running the 20 minutes under load, we have a VRM temperature of 51 degrees Celsius and we have a DIMM 1 temperature of 41 and DIMM 2 of about 40 degrees Celsius. Got the 360 AIO also assembled, and usually there is this thing in the delivery included. that you can just place on the pump head with magnet, and also in any kind of orientation you would need it to. And that's the same system that is used for this small VRM fan. Just place it on there, then attach it to the motherboard with the 4-pin fan, and then it's ready to use. If you're familiar with Noctua air coolers, you will also recognize the mounting system that is used on the AIO. It's the same principle. You have those 4 plastic pieces, then the 2 metal bars that you put on top, and that's where you simply mount the AIO pump head afterwards. Of course, we want to prioritize the CPU cooling itself, which means that I will not run the center fan at the highest RPM because it would then negatively impact the noise level. I decided to run this at about 600 RPM, which had no impact on the rest of the acoustics or the noise level. When it comes to the design of the Noctua product, it's the same as usual, especially with the brown in combination with RGB fans right here. It might look worse than it actually is. So if you would imagine that you would have a fully Noctua design, Noctua branded PC like we recently did, and you would add the AIO in there, it would look a lot better. And just probably switching off RGB in this PC would already also help and would make it look better. But it's always just purely subjective if you like this design or color choice or not. Kind of as expected, the results are really good. If we go and check the CPU temperature, it's 81.1 degrees Celsius. The temperature drop on VRM and DIMM is maybe not as big as I expected, but it also kind of makes sense. We see a temperature drop of 4 degrees Celsius on the VRM temperature and about 1 to 2 degrees Celsius on the DIMM temperature, which also kind of makes sense because they're not hot to begin with. Like 38 degrees Celsius, like physically it's impossible, for example, to have a 20 degrees drop, so I think this is kind of as expected. Here we have all the results again in an overview, and I also added the radiator size to the AIO names at the end. And I also added the pricing that I got out of Guideshals on the left. It is interesting to see that you can't just translate from the radiator size itself directly to the performance. For example, Noctua's 240 AIO is about 2.5 degrees Celsius better than the 360 AIO Endorphi Navis. The Liquid Freezer 3 by Arctic is still delivering a very impressive price performance. However, Noctua managed to be on top of this chart with the 360 AIO, delivering 81.1 degrees Celsius core temperature average. For a 240mm version, the LC124 is delivering impressive results. It's only about 3 degrees Celsius worse than the 360mm version, and it can also beat other 360mm AIOs. When it comes to the AIO itself, assembly, pump, radiator, this all comes from Asetek. That's no secret. Noctua is completely transparent about this, and Asetek is also a very well-known brand for designing and also producing AIOs. However, Noctua didn't just take a product from shelf. They definitely helped to improve this further, especially when it comes to reducing noise and vibration. They added additional elements inside the pump housing, and they're stating this is reducing the noise level by about additional 1 to 4 decibels. And they also list a comparison video online where you can see how it sounds like with or without their dedicated cover. I also find it quite impressive how detailed Noctua is listing everything on their website, from all kind of different charts about sound and noise level, and also, for example, how they managed to further reduce the vibration of the pump. For example, if you were wondering about a push-pull configuration, so get 2 more of those G2 fans, add them on top, so not only push it in, but also pull it out directly from the top. And according to Noctua, that is not a smart idea, because just looking at the performance, it will be worse. Or to translate it, you will have a higher noise level at the same temperatures. Overall, I would say this is the typical Noctua experience, not only by the design that you might like or dislike, but also from how thought through this product feels like. That's the typical Noctua thing. You can also see that by how many tests they performed and how transparent they are with all of this that you can find, for example, as documentation online on their website. And also the performance is Noctua experience. Just look at a 240 AIO that can beat other 360 AIOs without any problems. And looking at the 360 AIO, this is probably the top of the line AIO. But I also have to say, in my review, the difference between this 360 and other 360 AIOs was not as big as I saw in other reviews. One thing that I want to highlight is the Corsair Titan AIO. That actually surprised me. I never tested this one versus other AIOs, and it turned out that it's only about 1 degree Celsius worse than Noctua's 360. And this one is about 100 euros cheaper, and it also has RGB. So that's definitely something I think is worth highlighting. Of course, the Noctua products are always at the higher price range, but you not only get a thought through product, but you also get trust. Trust in a brand. You know that this is absolutely tested and reliable. And if something ever goes wrong, then you know Noctua is an absolutely trustworthy brand you could always approach, and you know they will not let you down. So that's always also worth something. And I want to highlight that stepping into the AIO market in 2026 is definitely not easy. It is such an optimized and also aggressive field when it comes to price structures, as you, for example, see with the Liquid Freezer 3. And so stepping into this market is definitely difficult. And then managing to pull off still a very good, I would say, overall conclusion of top noise levels and very good performance is definitely an achievement. So well done. Hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time. Bye bye.